Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. We're back with our weekly crypto news with our head of all the written research, Michael. Guys, head over to the platform. You can get the free newsletter or sign up for our paid research or VIP services. But how have you been, Michael?
Good, good. Market's turning. All the messages are coming in. Everyone's getting excited again. So it's a
Yeah,
good time to be here.
and just epic sort of world news and crypto tying in with politics and all this sort of stuff in this crazy environment that we're in.
Yeah, I think the big one from the week we saw was the stablecoin deal. And I don't think that this is official passed yet. I think they still have to do a secondary vote if I understand my US politics. But man, this is going to get wild now that all of these providers can now just literally offer stablecoins, and stablecoins will become the biggest buyer of US debt. So, we've arrived. This is the convergence of blockchain and TradFi effectively.
Yeah, we've got to fight to try and keep as much of it decentralized as possible so they can't usher in the CBDC and digital ID sort of technocracy.
Yep. And it's a concern, and it's a legitimate concern because we'll see the bastardization of the tech. That's what's going to happen. And so the tricky part will be like deciphering between what do we ethically want to stand for in the industry now, and what do we want to just try and hype and make money off of. So that's going to be a real paradigm shift as well moving forward when everyone's in blockchain, but only some people are purists.
Absolutely. Right, let's get into all these news items from the past week then.
All right. Let's bring my tab up. So I think for me, we did sort of come down. We got a little bit of a correction during the week, but then we popped back up, and I think we nearly touched that 110 again. But for me, the thing that's screaming from the charts for me is ETH. So Ethereum's looking strong. You can see it over the last 7 days. It's even outperforming Solana. BNB's got a bit of a run there, but I think it's coming. Like I wouldn't be surprised if in the very near future we still start seeing high 3Ks or 4K ETH. I'm not saying in the next week or so, but like that's coming, and that's what I'm preparing for and factoring my positions accordingly. I'm still very overweight Bitcoin, but starting to take little nibbles at scaling. I think that Bitcoin ETH ratio will start to correct, and so I'm starting to increase the ETH bags a bit.
Yeah, and this has been backed up by some fundamental news, which we'll get to as well.
Yeah, so rolling into it, I think the big one right here is that going along with the sort of the stablecoin narrative is that Circle will IPO. So we had heard the rumor last week that Ripple had bought them, but now it seems like they are going public, and this is just going to be a gangbuster. Like watch this absolutely rip because this is going to be the only way that people are going to get exposure to the stablecoin narrative, and the revenues on this are mental. Like I think Tether's only got 8 employees and they make $1 billion a month. So this is going to be hugely profitable. And yeah, so watch that one
And I think
charge.
just for the people, the other impact that this is going to have is, as you said, 8 employees. And we're already hearing rumors in the news about bank layoffs. So as we get more and more of this digital tech and AI, it just means like less and less jobs for people, which is kind of a scary thought as they usher in this new digital system with this tech. Yeah.
And the technocrats like love him or hate him with Elon. Like he's been flagging this for ages that there's not only going to need to be like a universal basic income because everyone's going to lose jobs and there's not going to be enough jobs to go around. So there's got to be some sort of AI tax that gets distributed to people because there's just going to be no work. Like it's pretty dystopian. Like when you think about this.
Yeah, like I've
Um,
been talking about, but you've got to become a sovereign citizen and decrease your reliance on government and all these things that are coming.
but we see the narrative and the general trend for people is want to rely more on the government, and you see it. Not to get too political on it, but you see people saying, "What's the government going to do for me?" And that's where they sort of lend their vote. Raul
Uh,
Paul says that you've got 5 years to make as much money as you can, and after that, it's game over. Like we're going to be owned by technology.
yeah, I agree
We
with
won't
that
get too
as
dark
well.
here.
Yes,
We won't get
agree.
too dark here, though. Um, so Kraken is moving to sort of add in equities along with just their crypto trading. So I think there will be a convergence as well of the banks sort of becoming crypto exchanges, but some of these big crypto exchanges getting into the worlds of stocks and TradFi as well. The convergence continues, and so I love the idea of being able to dip my toe into some sort of equities that are on chain and being able to use that in DeFi as well. Like that sounds amazing. But again, not where I will store the vast amounts of my wealth. But as far as like from a trading perspective, I think that opens whole new worlds of value accrual. So that it's
Yeah,
interesting. And Kraken's an OG.
Yeah, and a lot of people make the valid point that BlackRock and all these big financial firms kind of taking over Bitcoin isn't a great thing, but you've also got these crypto exchanges now taking over Wall Street, just tokenizing everything as well. Another thing I want to mention with Kraken is the FTX next round of distributions is meant to happen a few days from now, which should give the market a boost, you'd think, with people that have been waiting that are now going to get billions of dollars while crypto is still at reasonably lows, particularly altcoins and that. So I think that's all going to be really healthy for the whole market.
100%. Um, Speaking of cash injections, so Trump Media Group raises 3 billion to spend on crypto. So we already know that they've got the World Liberty Finance arm, I guess, of the Trump empire, and it seems like they're doubling down here as well. So I don't see any world where we can go into this level of money printing, which is going to be required to pay off debt, both out of the US and out of Japan. And you've got people raising these types of, numbers to invest into these assets. Like, watch what they do, not what they say. And even now, they're even saying it and doing it. So, number go up.
Yeah, and love or hate him, he's probably the most, gets the most attention in the world. So when Trump's and these companies and they're all talking about crypto and how they're raising to buy on altcoins and whatever, like it's going to bring people into the market.
Yep. And I think like a lot of people probably from the cryptocurrency space were all pretty pro Trump. I would say if you were to poll everybody, everyone was quite excited about it. There was probably a bit more of an emphasis on like that libertarian esque, whether or not that's pure from Trump or not, that's up for interpretation. But I think everyone has been both sort of confused about the approach, but also maybe like respect the transparency of the self interest. Like everybody
Yeah.
knows what's happening here. Um, yeah, so it's a very interesting place to be politically at the moment. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
well, and self-interest ties into this next article, doesn't it, with the Trump meme coin? And that looked like a pump and dump, and like, why on earth would you even do that? What's the need to do it? But they've given this a little bit of utility. So if you're a top Trump holder now, they had this dinner with Trump. So I guess that's given it a little bit of utility. And there's plenty of people out there, but wealthy businessmen that will want to have dinner with Trump. So maybe this is going to see some renewed interest in Trump's meme coin.
Raoul Paul again called this years ago. I reckon like before last cycle, where he said there would be a tokenization of culture, and it never really took off because everyone's like, "Oh, why do I care about some sort of celebrity's meme coin?" But like, if there is a tokenization of our like exactly what this is, if you want access to a particular brand or identity, then maybe there is some sort of value to their token, except it's not necessarily meme related, but just access to spheres of influence. Maybe that is the use case for some of these tokens. It's not tech based; it's culture based.
Yeah, and Gary Vee was the other one that did this reasonably
Yeah,
well, like the NFT kind of thing as a ticket to you sell a certain amount of NFTs and you do that many podcasts for whoever owns them that year and XYZ. So trying to give them utility and stuff, and maybe just going through the meme coin is the new route to do that type of thing.
100%. Um, Bitcoin. So Europe's Bitcoin treasury plan. So like this is again just another sovereign entity that's buying Bitcoin. Like I think now the genie's out of the bottle now. Now it's going to be a race to the bottom of who's going to be last, not who's going to be first. Um, some of the bigger buying institutions might take a little bit longer, but yeah, this is an unstoppable machine now.
Yeah, awesome to see Europe's first Bitcoin treasury, and this is just more and more people. We've covered in other episodes, Solana based, sales and doing the sailor style raising or whatever, and it's almost like this is another mechanic to hyperinflate away this debt through blowing up crypto and these other things. So I'm just fascinated to watch this all play out.
So again, crypto perpetuals trading. So that's also coming. I think some of the more mainstream type sort of stuff is happening here. Like we've seen a little bit of pushback from some of the big exchanges to not list like the hype token from Hyperliquid because there's competitiveness going on there. So then what happens? Will Hyperliquid then start eating the lunch of some other exchanges? Will more like derivatives, crypto-based derivatives of stocks start hitting these markets? Like they're all going to be very hyper competitive with each other, and there'll be this merger of TradFi and DeFi, and this is all just continues with the fact that now these normal trading desks are going to be having crypto perps.
Yeah, exactly. Agree with all that, which we sort of touched on before as well.
So back to Kraken, looks like they're launching a token. So interestingly enough, that just as they venture into the world of stocks, they sort of start now going down the time to tokenize. Um, Coinbase has been the one that has not really done this. Like there is no base token. And all of that revenue from the base chain goes into the coin stock. So I'll be interested to see how they play this on the flip side, if there will be some sort of revenue share model, and how these platforms will value accrual back to their token. But Kraken is an OG and is pretty regulated in the US, so I would imagine that this is going to be somewhat successful in
Yeah,
the
an
launch.
interesting timing. You would think they wouldn't be wanting to launch like an altcoin exchange-based token if they feel like the market's topped and the cycle's over or
No,
whatever, and we're about to head into a 2-year bear market. So yeah, pretty exciting to see.
yeah, yeah, very, very true, very true. You flagged this one with me. So this has been an ongoing conversation about quantum proofing Bitcoin and is Bitcoin's days numbered before it's hackable. Depends on what you think the timelines of quantum technology is, but yeah,
Yeah, I got a message from a
Harry.
mate who was kind of a bit fearful, and I was sort of saying, look, as you said, this has come up a number of times over the years. But I guess for people at home, the takeaway is that if it ever does get to the point where it can be cracked, the encryption for Bitcoin, the developers, the miner, the community, are all going to come together and agree, hey, we don't want Bitcoin to break. Let's upgrade that encryption to make it harder. I don't see why people wouldn't want to do that with all the miners and whatever protecting their investments and stuff. So we can upgrade Bitcoin to make it more quantum resistant if the tech ever does become a serious threat.
And that might be even a Bitcoin fork as well. There could be some sort of other fork that becomes, you know, slightly variation on the tech, and then some people will still hang with the OG quantum version, but Bitcoin is forkable, and it's not like it hasn't happened before as well. So I think very smart people will be watching this. No one wants to lose their money, and so it's not something that keeps me up at night. To be honest, I think there will be fixes for this.
Yeah, and I can't see too many people wanting to hold the version that's still vulnerable and like just waiting to get their
Yeah,
Bitcoin hacked and that type of thing. So yeah,
100%, 100%. Um, okay, so this is another one for me because I still feel like as much as Bitcoin is the most pure version of collateral, I think the infrastructure around it is still being developed, like the Bitcoin L2 narrative and stacks. It still hasn't quite become mainstream, and I think we need a full cycle of it. Where ETH on the other side does have fully fledged, lending and borrowing markets, and really robust DeFi applications. And so I'm very bullish Ethereum still. I do feel like the fact that now the narrative has pivoted back to upgrading the mainnet, I
hmm.
think is nothing but bullish. And I still feel like we break ETH all-time highs this cycle. The fact that this has now become a major focus, and even if it takes some time to get there, all it is needs to be is a narrative. And so there's real plans in place to actually scale this. And there's a good post here from Justin Drake. He's a researcher from the Ethereum Foundation. Follow him along, but they're all eyes on scaling the mainnet here, which is only positive. I feel.
Yeah, and I feel like this backdrop of so many people are finally waking up to the evil of the banking system and the financial system and the need for Bitcoin. But we haven't really had that light bulb moment for most people in the need for Web3 and protecting your own data. And a lot of people sort of, Facebook's losing popularity and that type of thing, but we haven't taken that next step and then built those apps and got that out there. So we need an Ethereum like tech to do all this decentralized internet and bring back our sovereignty.
Yep. And stuff like Ethereum is super important. And so there's another protocol I believe called Hemi, HEMI, which kind of uses both Bitcoin and Ethereum for security layers. They're working like a Bitcoin L2, but by using the Ethereum tech. I'll talk more about it in the coming weeks because I was still playing around on it.
Yeah.
But I think that there will be a cohort of people that are like Bitcoin and Ethereum maximalists, and maybe will then start getting rid of the rest, kind of the way that Bitcoin maximalism was really resistant to Ethereum. I think that there will be a cohort where people will merge together, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this plays out culturally. But
Awesome.
all right, so SUI is the other one that obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana now tend to be where the most of the mind share is. But I do feel like after that, SUI's got the next biggest sort of cohort of followers that do feel like this is the next big thing. But they had a massive hack, and seems to be par for the course. If you're trying to be a major player, like you get more attention, and the hackers focus on you. But the huge issue here is that it showed that centralization was more fugazi because they just coordinated with all the validators and blocked the transaction from the hackers, which great from a capital preservation viewpoint, but terrible from a decentralization maximalist viewpoint. And so they really have been exposed as, not really decentralization at all. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And following on from what we just spoke about, it depends on the need. And for people that really want to see that true censorship resistant, sovereign based chain and internet that we want to build, that you've got to recognize that if people are freezing funds and, whether it's the Sols or the SUIs or XRPs, if there's that degree of centralization when it can happen, it will happen when there's government pressure, political pressure, or so on. So nothing wrong with the tech. It can be amazing and it's lightning fast, but just remember that everything has its pros and its cons.
I still feel like this is an amazing trade. Like you see, the chart didn't even blink with something like this. It barely even dipped with the hack. So people are becoming battle hardened to this type of thing. And maybe they do give a little bit of leg rope to something like SUI, like Solana got for ages, that everyone kind of knew that it was still centralized, but as long as they were on the path to decentralization, I think that this is still an epic trade. But again, if you're a freedom lover, I wouldn't be storing 100% of your net worth in centralized chains that can be censored.
Yeah, and I think we've seen a bit of renewed interest in Monero as well for this whole reason about, well, what is private and what is decentralized and that type of thing. And yeah.
100%. This was just another data dump on all of the growth metrics around SUI. It is coming, and it is sandwiching Solana in between SUI on the bottom side and Ethereum on the top side. So I don't think that it's just this undisputed narrative that Solana will become the biggest chain, because as much as they make ground on Ethereum, there's chains making ground on Solana as well. And all of the metrics point to SUI being bullish as far as a trade. They're just getting huge amounts of adoption. So we'll pay more and more attention to the ecosystem, but eyes wide open for, what it is.
Yeah, and we'll have Jason on the channel again soon because he's really across Solana and SUI now. So love picking his brain on all that.
Yeah, so just as Ethereum's trying to scale, so too is Solana. So they've introduced their largest protocol change. I feel like this was a team that left the Solana Foundation, and they've gone out to go and try and create a new consensus mechanism. And so this will be very interesting to see what Solana does here. And really, like, we never actually saw Fire Dancer get released, which was meant to be their other client. It's still coming, but it goes to show you, this was probably this time last year, that was all the talk, that Solana had this new client that was going to make all of this new tech even more amazing than what already is. And they're still at it. So all of these ecosystems have really robust teams that are developing them. And as long as their pathway is towards decentralization, I think we give them some leeway. Yeah. And I do think that it is positive from what's happening from the Solana side. But yeah, it is, like, these are all very competitive networks that are all fighting for attention. So watch the space. But lots happening, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that we've come so far in the past cycle. We still haven't had that one killer decentralized app yet that's really, got people downloading on their phones and getting excited or whatever. But it feels like we're sort of approaching that, and it could happen at the end of this cycle, possibly. So yeah, amazing times. And we'll keep up all our research over on the platform, guys, on all the latest trends, best investments in our portfolios as well. So thanks for your time, Michael. We'll see you again next week.